Good morning, and wishing you all a very happy World Nature Conservation Day. GLS University's Faculty of Commerce BCom Honors, formerly known as SM Patel Institute of Commerce, was established in the year 1999, which prepares the students to become astute business professionals and provides them with the required competitive edge for successful career, which aims at the all-round development of the students by delivering prudent mix of conceptual knowledge and real-life exposure. On behalf of Faculty of Commerce SMPIC, I, Dr. Devyani Chatterjee, welcome our today's guest, Dr. Niyati Mistry Ma'am, a nature enthusiast and conservationist, Associate Professor and Head of Department of Geography, Government College, Gandhinagar. Faculties and my dear students, on the occasion of celebration of World Nature Conservation Day 2021. World Nature Conservation Day is celebrated globally on 28 July to spread awareness about the nature and the need to protect the natural resources. Conservation is the care and protection of these resources so that they can be preserved for future generations. It includes maintaining diversity of species, genes, and ecosystems. Conservation is similar to preservation, but while both relate to the protection of nature, they strive to accomplish this task in different ways. Conservation seeks the sustainable use of nature of humans for activities such as hunting, logging, or mining, while preservation means protecting nature from human use. At GLS University, under the visionary leadership of multifaceted and charismatic President Dr. Sudhir Nanavati sir, we are relatively agile to adapt to what is needed to ensure excellence in academic and para-academic activities. Today, under the banner of StatStorm, the Statistics Club, we are celebrating World Nature Conservation Day, wherein we have kept an expert lecture on sustaining people and planet, the inevitable need of today's era, which will be delivered by Dr. Niyati Mistry Ma'am. We have also kept a poster making competition with slogan on the theme Nature Conservation. We feel proud and privileged to have with us Dr. Niyati Mistry Ma'am, a nature enthusiast and conservationist, an associate professor and head of Department of Geography, Government College, Gandhinagar, has a teaching experience of 29 years. She has taught in School of Liberal Studies, PDPU, and Indian Institute of Teachers Education, Gandhinagar. She has worked on many projects with Department of Climate Change, Government of Gujarat. She is the member of Board of Studies of Gujarat University and chairperson and member of Board of Studies of North Gujarat University. She was a panelist in International Conference on Sustainable Development Goals, Gender Equality, jointly organized by CEE and United Nations in January 2016 and September 2016. She has been associated with Gujarat Vishwakosh Trust and has contributed several articles in their publication. Her areas of interest are gender studies, women empowerment, climate change, environmental geography, conservation, and geospatial technology. She has sustained her interest in literature, theatre, and yoga also. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your invaluable time and accepting our invitation for delivering the expert session. I once again welcome you all in the celebration of World Nature Conservation Day and express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Sudhir Nanavati, President, GLS University, for providing us the platform and opportunity to organize unlimited academic and para-academic activities for the students of GLS University. Now, I welcome Dr. Niyati Mistry ma'am to conduct the session. Ma'am, please.
Good morning, Devyani, and thank you for the introduction. Namaskar, and let me begin with thanking. Is my camera okay? Let me begin with thanking the organizing committee, Dr. Abora, Dr. Chatterjee, and other office bearers of the GLS University to share my concerns of environmental conservation with you. Friends, when we talk about conservation, protection, sustaining, what comes to our mind is what is exactly the dictionary definition of sustenance or conservation. And so next slide. The dictionary meaning of the sustenance is to keep something or somebody alive or healthy. Just keeping alive is not important. Having healthy planet is at the core. And it is also defined to make something continue for a long period of time without becoming less or losing quality. I'm sure you all have heard about Brundtland Report, 1987. The Norwegian Prime Minister Brundtland himself talked about our common future, and the term was coined as sustainable development, which is again defined the development which meets the need of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, as a teacher of geography, as one who has always been associated with nature-related activity, conservation activity, and somebody who is deeply interested in literature, I feel that why the question of sustainable development or sustaining or sustenance or conservation came. I'm sure you all think about it. Well, in the beginning, I would say that our Vedic literature talks something very interesting. There's a saying, Swasti Vachana in literature, Kale Varshantu Parjanya Shrushti Shashya Shamala Desho Amkshobhrahitaha Sajjana Santu Nirbhara. Meaning, exactly, may the rain shower in the proper season. May the earth be prosperous with abundant crops and vegetation. May the country be free from distress. May good people, Sajjana, be fearless. Now, this is the basic spirit, what we are going to talk about people, planet, and sustaining them. So, next slide. So, it's only after the human beings or the Homo sapiens came on the planet, the things started changing. When we say planet in our geography classroom, we say the realms of planet Earth is lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere. And biosphere is the only one which encompasses all three other spheres. The interaction of physical elements of nature and man after the arrival of men on planet, created a very unique relationship. And looking at this point of time, I would say the relationship has become very strenuous. Initially, if we look at the history of mankind, thinking about last 10,000 years, a caveman used to live in a very harmonious situation with the nature. It was very much in a sync with the nature, and there were not many major changes in the nature because of the human activity. It's only after the industrial revolution, last 100 years, the population explosion because of the healthcare improvement in the healthcare facilities, emergence of global market, which made us a consumeristic society. Our aspirations changed. Our needs comforts to the luxury. It is the beginning of the crisis for the planet, the birth of only economic man. As students of commerce, I'm sure you are all aware what exactly is the economic man. And I believe it is the economic man which has brought number of changes. Why exactly, at what point of time things started changing? Last 150 years. So we come to the why, how and when the question at all arise. And it's only after the emergence of the economic man things started changing. So next slide. Next. All of a sudden we realize, so could I have next slide? All of a sudden we started realizing that our rivers are dying.
नहीं
Our air and water is not
चेक
fit to
कर लो
consume. Our glaciers are receding. Our marine life is dying. Our cities are experiencing extreme flood condition. Our wildlife is suffering because of the habitat loss. You can see in the next slide that it's a very famous photograph. So could I have a next slide? Yeah, the air and water is not fit to consume. Next, please. Glaciers are receding. You can see here a satellite picture of Gangotri Glacier, and from 780 to 2001, it has considerably receded. A snow line is also receding. Next, sir. Yeah, but loss of marine life also. Sir, next. Our cities. Now, when we come to the flooding in the city area, I would like to give you an example from our own city, Ahmedabad. If you go to the fringe area, you will see number of other suburban areas like Bhopal and Shilaj are developing very fast, and even further till Thor. And I'm sure you all have noticed that there are small water bodies in each village. Now, what happens is, as a part of the development, the land use has changed, and we have number of industrial as well as residential complexes coming up at a very fast rate. There was a natural drainage pattern in the village, where things used to, when the rainwater used to drain to that area, low-lying area, which was a small pond or a lake. Now, because of our encroachment, the changes in the land use pattern, what has happened is we don't have any low-lying area in the village or in a city. I'm sure you all have seen it, observed it, experienced it, that water is flooded wherever we stay. If we have a rains 2, 3, 4 inches in a 3 hours, and it is going to be even more common now. We all have seen that in the last few years, the pattern, the behavioral pattern of the very precipitation and rainfall has changed. The number of days have decreased, and within a very short span, we have heavy rains. So flooding is experienced, particularly urban flooding is experienced, and even the flooding in other areas. We recently saw a severe example in western Maharashtra. One of the reasons is the urban flooding, the changes in the land use pattern, and the other one is the large scale deforestation. Sir, could I have the next slide? Yeah. So, yes, this is one of the very famous photographs, and which shook the world, which shook the conservationist and sensitive people. You can see a polar bear. It has lost its habitat. Same is the case with us. Could I have next slide, sir? Yeah, this is from Sundarban Delta. So you can see a young couple looking at the house which is almost submerged. Next, sir. Yes, I could not share the satellite image because of the issue of confidentiality, but I have a image of Gujarat, you can see, taken over a period of time. On your left, you have September 19 photographs. On your right, you have a May 31st photograph. You can see the Saurashtra, Kutch, in mainland of Gujarat, where you have Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Khamat. The low-lying area is submerged. Now, this is the situation. This has happened in the last 5 to 10 years. Earlier, I'm sure you all know that Saurashtra and Kutch were islands once upon a time in a geological history. But it is Banas and other rivers which are responsible for the deposition, and then we have Saurashtra and Kutch is very much a part of Gujarat. So inundation has become very common. Flooding has become very common. These are just the issues related to nature. The next slide would show the other side of the story also, because we are talking about people. As millions move to cities that cannot house them, why do we migrate? Why do they have to migrate? Because there is no livelihood, the loss of livelihood. What Gandhi talked about, Gram Swaraj, and making your village self-sufficient. We did not follow him, we did not believe him. Now we have come back to it, we call it Atmanirbhar Bharat. Gandhiji was ahead of his time and he talked about Atmanirbhar village long back. But we did not listen. As a result, thousands of people, millions of people across the globe migrate for the work. As a result, Various sectors suffer. Your agriculture, you can see in next slide, agriculture, forest, snow and glaciers, water resources, coastal area, your biodiversity, marine life, health. When we talk about health, we are very selfish animals. So we always think about just our health, but the health of other living organism also matters. We all hear about biodiversity, and there is a lot of dialogue going on about preserving the biodiversity. Why? The next slide would show that there has been a loss of huge biodiversity. Yeah, here in the next slide, you have a graph showing, yes, there is a hue and cry. I'm sure you are all uh, aware of it, that biodiversity is discussed at various stages. Why? Because you can see that species are being extinct, the genetic diversity is being affected, and ecological diversity is also being affected. The rate of species extinction today is far higher than the recorded for any period in the geological history of planet. So there is a serious issue. And unfortunately, when we talk in a class, we always say that change is a law of nature. And in the past also, the climate has changed over a period of time in geological history. There have been a number of changes on planet. But this is unprecedented. Why? Because the agent is a human being. In my next slide, you can see that there are anthropogenic agents, human activities which has cleared land for many reasons. Initially, it was a shifting cultivation, and we have always been blaming uh, the people who are associated with zooming. Yeah, here is a slide how the biological and socio-economic system will be affected. You can see the glaciers and corals. One side, glaciers are melting, the corals are being affected because of the sea level rise, the temperature in the sea level, and health, agriculture, forest, water resources, biodiversity, marine and coastal areas are being highly affected. Next slide, sir. Yeah. So could I have next slide? Yeah. I just talked about the agent is a human being, we Homo sapiens. We clear the land and we blame the shifting cultivators that you have cleared the forest for your selfish purpose. And now think about how small scale it was. We have altered the things at a very large scale. We have cleared the land, forest for residential purpose, for industrial purpose, and you can see the development, so-called development everywhere. We burn fossil fuel, which inject greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide into the atmosphere. There has been a 30% increase in carbon dioxide and 150% increase in methane since the industrial revolution. Now you will say that there is a cyclical pattern of climate change or change in the nature. There was an ice age on the planet. There has been climate change in the past, but the carbon dating of the rocks, the minerals say a different story because they are the evidences that there has been a substantial rise in the amount of CO2, that is carbon dioxide and methane. Climatic theory suggests that several degrees Celsius of global warming is possible, and we are already experiencing it, even likely during next century. Carbon emissions are predicted to increase several folds during the next 100 years. Could I have the next slide, sir? Yeah, here is a yes. Thank you. Yes, here is a global anthropogenic greenhouse gases emission. You can see the amount of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and I think slide is slightly light. We have taken it from the IPCC report. Could I have next slide, sir? Which is about the annual greenhouse gas emission by sector. Yes. So here you can see that power, industrial processes, and transportation sectors are the major sectors contributing towards the emission of greenhouse gases. 12.5% from the agriculture byproducts, methane particularly, fossil fuel, retrieval processes and distribution, waste disposal, land use and biomass burning, and residential, commercial, and other sources. So the major culprit is carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Could I have a next slide? This is about the planet, yeah, the Earth system and the human system because they are interlinked, interdependent. And for 1,000 years, million years together, they have been, the various natural elements have been living in a perfect harmony. Since last few thousand years when Homo sapiens came on the planet, things were quite normal because we used to behave. The behavioral pattern had not influenced, was not influenced by the emergence of new economy. So, yeah, we have altered the Earth system. As a result, we have we have number of crises regarding the human aspect also. My next slide would talk about it. Could I have a next slide, sir? What we see is widening economic gap. There is, there is a huge gap between haves and haves not. And I, as a teacher, or we as a community of a teacher, should not say so, but the aspiration of a laborer and aspiration of Adani and Abani are almost same. Now, the problem is one aspires to have number of luxury, and when few percent of people have luxurious life, this earth was bit disturbed. But when many people started desiring for more and more luxurious life, I don't blame any, I'm not taking a judgmental role, but we have to think about it that this widening economic gap and increasing, ever increasing aspirations and desires are creating social issues. This is one of those severe economic issues. Education is accessible to a very small percentage of people world over. People who build economic power have a choice of going to the best universities of the world, the best institutions of the world. And you still see child laborer at a child Italy. So the gap is increasing day by day, and unfortunately, the aspirations and desires are also increasing at the both sides. Gender and caste-based discriminations are also increasing. Human right violation, rapid urbanization and migration, lack of proper health system. We all have experienced this in a very recent past. Declining trust in political institutions, which is again a very serious issue. High crime rate. When I say declining trust in a political institution, we all take at a one point or any given point of time a law in our hand. We believe that a criminal should be punished by ourselves and not by law. So this is the distrust in the system of the institution. High crime rate is one of the major issue, and this led to the Earth Summit because it cannot be a nature versus man. Sir, could I have the next slide which talk about the Sustainable Development Goals? I'm sure you all have heard about it. You all have read. If you haven't studied it in a details, I would suggest you kindly go through it. It's a very interesting document. In 2015, more than 190 world leaders committed to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are known as SDGs, to help all and extreme poverty, fighting inequality and injustice, and fix climate change. We each have a role to play if we are going to achieve these goals for more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable world. When we say prosperous, I mentioned at the beginning, prosperous means there is a 33% covered with forest, which makes our earth Shasya Shamala, and which is one of the signs. When you have a 33% of your land covered with the forest, you should be considered a very prosperous society, equitable. And when I say equitable, we always have a very limited um, definition. We talk about only human equality. Equitable means all living organisms also have equal right to be on the earth and sustainable world. If time permits, I would narrate a story briefly on a concept of sustainable development and mythology in our mythology. I don't want to go into the sustainable development goals. Sir, we can, I think, skip those slides. But I would briefly mention the first goal is to eliminate poverty. Second, to no hunger. Third is good health. Fourth is quality education. Uh, Gender equality, clean water and sanitation, renewable energy, good jobs and economic growth. Ninth goal is industrial innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequality, sustainable cities and communities. See, this is something very important because we all stay in a city area, urban areas, and we don't realize that our lifestyle is not sustainable. We are not behaving as a sustainable community. Responsible consumption. Again, I said we became, the economic man became just a consumer and not producer. There is a web of consumer and producer in the nature. But we have obstructed that cycle. 13th goal is climate action. 14th is life below water. 15th is life on land. 16 is peace and justice. We just talked about peace and justice because it makes this planet habitable. Unless and until there is a peace and justice, one cannot survive on the earth. partnership, which is very important. And now I'm sure you all have heard about public-private partnerships. Partnership with other countries, developed, developing, less developed, those who are unable to do for themselves, we have to give them hand-holding support. We don't want to leave behind anybody. That spirit of progressing together, developing ourselves together, is reflected in Goal 17. Now I come to the other part. We have talked about various issues of challenges before nature, challenges before mankind. There are four fundas I would like to mention here. Sustainability. Can you achieve financial self-sustainability? No dependency on government grants or any other types of donation. You are all former students. So this is something I found very interesting and relevant here. As a students of commerce, if you start thinking on this line, anyway, you are all young generation, and we must work together to do something about this. Can we focus on a social enterprise achieving self-sustainability? So we need to think on those lines. Whatever we are doing here at your place, like I know a number of people who are working on a individual level. Is it replicable? Can I do it at any other place? Whatever is being done at a smaller level, I'm going to give you some examples in the next slide. But can we do it if something is being done in Rajasthan? Can we do it in Gujarat? If something is being done in some smart city, can we do it? Replicability is very important. Scalability. Reach out to the more people in different geographies, reaching more and more people with eco-friendly products or services. The fourth is social impact or return. I want to reduce poverty, unemployment, bring gender justice, social harmony. There are a number of things, but can I measure it, quantify it? Yeah. Sir, could I have next slide? Is there any hope? I just talked about the fundas which can make this planet better. Yes, you can always begin being a social entrepreneur. I'm sure you have you are in university where you have an incubation center and student startups, all the activities which are being organized and being facilitated by your institution. So this is one of this upcoming field, a practical visionary. What is social entrepreneur? A practical visionary who possesses quality traditionally associated with the leading business entrepreneur, vision, innovation, determination, and long-term commitment. Without commitment, you can't do anything. Just focus on systematic social change. The mission is to create a social values, not just private value. Could I have the next slide, sir? Can I offer affordable healthcare system, affordable housing? That's the next slide. Yes. Can I do something about water and sanitation? Next slide, sir. Can we do together something for agriculture, energy efficiency? Next slide. Education, because education is one of the key instrument in bringing change. Next, sir. And other biggest issue or challenge faced by us is livelihood promotion. So, as a social entrepreneur, could we do together something about this? Next slide, sir. You would ask me that has anybody done this? Yes, I would like to give you some example. Grameen Bank, Bangladesh. You all heard about Mohammed Yunus, and Grameen Bank is a celebrated model. See, Mohammed Yunus initiated number of schemes, and one of them, which is I haven't put it here, but the climate women of Bangladesh, the women, the young cadre of women were trained into helping people with mitigating the natural disaster. The geographically, Bangladesh is located at such a place, it's a very vulnerable geographical location. So they always experience extreme climate, cyclones, and inundation is a very common issue there. Number of islands have inundated in last few years, and there are major changes because of the climate change. They trained a cadre of young women who would go from village to village and talk about the mitigation part. That they even trained number of young women as a doctor because in our social culture, Asian culture, women always is responsible for the health purpose at the family level or we trust lady nurses. So they were trained for that to eradicate the TB. The young girl would come to your house and a patient in your family or a house suffering from the TB would be given medicine and would be looked after the young lady. If they can do it, why can't we do it? We have our Gujarat model, which can talk about the taste. It is the taste of India, Amul. It's a great success story. Nairita Services Private Limited, water harvesting through Bungro. The women farmers who brought the change. Guchpro Agribusiness Consortium, helping FPOs and benefiting many farmers across the state. Sarvajal, Piramal Water Limited, providing clean drinking water in an entrepreneurial way. There are a number of other examples. Sir, could I have the next slide? Yes, I just mentioned Bhungru, which guarantee irrigation and food in extreme weather. They are all women climate leaders. Next slide, sir. Yeah, I would like to skip this slide. Could I have next, sir? Yeah, Guj Pro is one of those schemes in Gujarat, 13 districts in Gujarat. And it's again a very interesting case study. Next slide, sir. Next. Yeah. So we have been talking about what we can do because as a teacher you can't be pessimistic. There are a couple of things I would suggest if you read. One of those is a very well-known book by Viktor Frankl. He says life is difficult, and when I say life is difficult, it has a very negative connotation that why teachers should talk about difficulties. Because we are all there to bring a major change, a positive change. So, Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of Holocaust, was a doctor, and he has written about his experiences in Man's Search for Meaning. I think this is the time. It's one of those very relevant literature at this point of time. When you lose hope, there are certain authors, some people who see to it that you are revived. And I would suggest all my young friends, you read the book and you will realize that you have a potential to bring the change. Yes, are there any questions?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful lecture. Ma'am, there are a few questions from the students.
Yeah,
I'm taking those questions on behalf of them. The first one is they want to know what is ozone layer, the composition and everything, and how it can be prevented from depletion at their level, what they should do for the prevention of depletion of ozone layer.
yeah. Um, Ozone is a triatomic form of oxygen. You all know it is O3, naturally found in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is, we call it, it's made of various gases, water vapor, dust particle. The major part of the atmosphere is made of nitrogen and oxygen and other helium and carbon dioxide and other gases form a very small part of the atmosphere. In a stratosphere, a layer of atmosphere which is known as a stratosphere or ionosphere at the height of 15 to 35 kilometers from the sea level, we have a concentration of this triatomic oxygen, which is known as ozone. It plays a very important role in protecting the earth from ultraviolet rays because it absorbs the major amount of ultraviolet rays. Otherwise, the life, the biosphere cannot survive on the planet because we just think about ourselves, but it is the life. All the living organism cannot tolerate such extreme temperature had there been no ozone. So, ozone has always blanketed us from the ultraviolet rays. It got depleted because of the emission of greenhouse gases and particularly what we call halogenated gases, chlorofluorocarbon, halon, and nitrogen oxide. Now, being responsible citizens, changes in a we have a scope of being a social entrepreneur here. If we find an alternative of chlorofluorocarbon or other technique which can help in preserving the ozone, if we decrease our consumption pattern, if we change our consumption pattern and decrease the amount of CFC and halons or nitrous oxide to the atmosphere, I think we should be able to preserve the ozone layer. Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there is one more question actually. Uh, a student is asking whether we are at the transition of ages, like whether we are moving towards green technology from brown age, and whether nuclear technology can be considered as a green technology.
yeah. Coming to the first part, I would like to say change, as I am repeating, the change is the only permanent law. There has been a transition, there has been a change. Otherwise, we wouldn't have evolved without change. So there is, this is a transition period because there was a generation, there was a time when nobody was bothered about the planet, the other living organism. Last 25 years, 30 years, we have become more sensitive towards. So there was a transformation from a very consumeristic society to a sensitive. There is, I see a change, and the change what Gandhi had perceived for us. He has said very rightly that the change that you want to see around you, you have to be that change. So things are changing. Hopefully, this is transition period and will bring about positive change for people and planet both. Now, the second part, from brown economy to green economy, green technology. Yes, there are a number of success stories from students of IIT, IIMs, and other premier institute of the country and world. There is a huge, you see, solar power generation, wind technology, energy consumption, changes in the energy efficiency. So we don't have choice there. We'll have to shift from brown to green economy. And I think there has been a change, a gradual change in we are moving towards green technology gradually. The third part is atomic energy. I don't think it is advisable. It's a harmful thing, and we have experienced the power of atomic weapons. Atomic energy is equally harmful, and not just for living beings, but the environment is made of abiotic elements also. Many of our activity has already affected abiotic cover. For example, soil. Soil, I would, as a teacher of geography, I would call it non-living. It's a living organism. But at the same time, rocks and minerals for generations to come, I would say it is dangerous and it's not advisable as per my opinion. Now, madam, if we have a time, I would like to narrate one of those stories, a myth from the scriptures. I don't know whether many of the students have heard about it, but I would like to conclude with that. How Yayati, Yayati was he's ancestor of Kaurava and Pandavas, and he was married to the daughter of Shukracharya. Shukracharya was son. Shukracharya was a guru of Asuras. He did the mistake of falling in love with some other women. He was married to Devyani, and yeah, Shukracharya was very unhappy that he said, "You have betrayed my daughter. Nothing doing." He cursed his son-in-law, who was in prime of youth. Said, "I curse you with old age." So you know what are the geriatric issues. So Yayati became old and he was in a very miserable state. Shukracharya said, if you exchange your old age, your miseries with any of your son is willing, any of your son is willing to exchange his youth with you, you can be young again. That would be a rejuvenation. So Yayati was obsessed with the youth. He was very unhappy that he was cursed with this. He requested his sons, and it was a Puru. Puru accepted his proposal. He said, "Yes, I will exchange the your youth, my youth with your old age. It happened that Yayati became young and he enjoyed all his life for 1,000 years. He enjoyed all his senses, all five indriyas. After many years, he realized that permanent youth is also not, and the youth at the cost of my son. Oh, and then he, all of a sudden, that realization brought unhappiness. He was grief stricken. He said, no, I have done a mistake. So he again prayed to the God. He was quite enlightened man. He said, okay, I have committed mistake, and I don't want to be. I have enjoyed all my life, and I can't see my son suffering because of me. Of course, that wisdom came quite late. In our case, also, the wisdom has come quite late, but we have realized, right? So he became old. He again exchanged his youth with his son, and Puru lived happily ever after. I believe this is the sustainable development that we talk about. We can't compromise of the happiness and the health of our next generation. I believe we can, if we don't have other questions, we can conclude here with the story of Yayatis. We don't want to be Yayatis. Let's be Puru, who is always been ready to accept his father's curse also. But let's be responsible. What wisdom and prudence Yayati got after 1,000 years. Let's rejuvenate our earth with our planet with a new commitment and new spirit.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your knowledge sharing session on such an important topic, sustaining people and planet. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for solving all the queries of the students in such a nice and lucid way. Now, I take the opportunity to propose vote of thanks. First of all, I heartily thank our guest speaker, Dr. Niyati Mistry, ma'am, for readily accepting our invitation and sparing her invaluable time to enlighten us all. Her insights into the topic and lucid explanation on the topic has widened our horizons of thinking. It is my humble privilege to express my gratitude to the President of GLS University, Dr. Sudhir Nanavati, and entire GLS management for their continuous support to organize such events. I express my sincere gratitude to the captain of our ship, Dean CA Dr. Marzoon Jogi sir, for wholeheartedly lending his consistent support, guidance, and motivation to organize this event. His minute observations and suggestions helped a lot for the meticulous execution of this event. Thanks a lot, sir. I also thank Dr. Keyur Vora sir for the technical support and to all my colleagues for their support wherever and whenever required. I thank all the participants for actively participating in the entire event. Students, if you have not yet submitted your posters, submit that by 1 p.m. through the Google link provided to you. Link will be closed at 1 p.m. Once again, I thank you all and have a nice day. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
ma'am.
thank
Thank
you,
you so much,
thank
ma'am.
you.